Welcome to Island's Plate with me, Treasure. I have another sewing video for you, and I'm going to take you on my journey of me learning how to sew a quilt. The reason why I decided to sew this quilt is because I believe it is a perfect beginner level artistry of sewing. When you're learning to put together clothes, I think quilting, like specifically sewing boxes together, triangles together, whatever, is going to teach you how well you are or how precise you are. And it'll kind of you can gauge how well your clothes are coming out really based off of what quilting will teach you. That is my hypothesis anyway. So I decided to challenge myself to sew this quilt to learn how well or how skilled I am with literally sewing a straight line. So it's very interesting what I came up with, and my goal is to do this project and come back in a year like I did with the jelly roll rug and show you my progress. I've been sewing for about 2 years now, and I still feel as if I have a lot of growing to do, and that's what I love about sewing itself. So I hope that you feel inspired by this video and you're able to learn something along the way. So let's begin. You're going to need fabric and batting, scissors, ruler, cutting mat, and a sewing machine. I started this project by cutting the fabric into 9x9 squares. Choose whatever sizes is best for you. So I finished cutting up everything, and now I am putting everything together, piece by piece. Come on, you're gonna see my little setup here. So it goes from here to here to here. See here. So I really am surprised by how this is coming out. I'm really proud of myself. I really am. I'm just trying to figure out how much wider I'm going to make it, or if I'm going to leave it the way it is. But I'm fairly impressed for my first time. And then especially like while I was like sewing this and putting this together, some of my stuff wasn't so symmetrical. I think that's what it is. It wasn't so symmetrical, so I was really like, I was a little worried about it, but no. So there are some parts that like I just didn't sew straight enough, and I don't really like the way it came out. So I'm just gonna seam rip it and sew it again. I'm doing this a few times to get the best version of this quilt as I possibly can get, and that's what I'm focusing on, is trying my best to, like the beginning of the video, sew a straight line and make everything as straight as I possibly can. So I won't be able to fix everything, but a good majority of it I probably can get as close as I can to better lines. After you sew your project together, or your quilt together, I am going for the rag quilt look, so I'm snipping it so I can put it in the washer, and it has that shaggy look to it. This part was a little tedious, but it was still enjoyable, and I learned something. Do not cut too deep. or when you put it into the washer, it may disintegrate and you'll find yourself sewing it all over again, kind of like it did now. So I threw it in the washer and it kind of disintegrated a little bit and I had to sew it over again. No biggie, but I think this is kind of like a heads up. You should kind of be wary of this. Okay, so it's been a minute. I'm going to be like actually doing like 2 things back to back, but you'll see that in the other video. But this is the finished product of my quilt. Let me unfold it. This is the finished product. Now, this is my first time doing a quilt. I probably get like a more like detailed picture. It's my first time doing a quilt. And I'm gonna probably do it a few more times to see how well I get at doing quilts, basically. In between doing clothes and other sewing projects to figure out like where is my groove, like where do I specifically want to sew, like what specifically do I want to sew. But you learn some very interesting fundamental skills needed to sew, and you figure out how well you sew based off of how you quilt, which was my whole point, was to gauge where I was after sewing for I would say maybe about 2 years I've been sewing. And when you're supposed to sew something like a 1/4 inch, an inch, or whatever, quilting will let you know how well you are at doing that. And this is the reason why potentially your clothes aren't coming out the way that you need them to, because maybe you need to be better at gauging that, and this will let you know that, because for the most part it's fairly symmetrical, but you see some issues here I'm having with sewing, and this kind of helps you figure out like, okay, we're fairly close, but maybe we got a little work to do, you know? Maybe we have a little work to do. There are some areas that were really good. You know, like here, some areas are like really, really good. For the most part, the quilt came together beautifully. So I don't think I'm too far off my mark with my skills. I just have a little work to do. And that's what this whole project was about in the first place, was to do something fun, something simple, and to see exactly where I was with my sewing skills and abilities. So we will see how well I do later on down the line. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.